For a limited time, get your perk posters and t-shirts today at radredring.com. It's time for another whiteboard video. Welcome back, and how you doing? I hope you've all had a wonderful time since I last saw you in my very depressing Richtofen video. Hopefully we can lighten the mood a bit with a whiteboard video, but I do appreciate all the support. I do have to thank you all again. Now, shut up, Reed. Let's get into why we're even here. A lot of speculation going on to which Richtofen is which and how many there are and what's going on, and I absolutely love your feedback. During that stream where I broke out the whiteboard and my raw reactions to the Blood of the Dead ending was more for entertainment value and less for educational value or for informing you about what's going on, for the sole fact that I didn't have enough information, and I was also working with a complete lack of information and I didn't have enough time to process it. The cool thing about that video is we had to like group think all the whiteboard stuff, but the downside of that is I don't have time to prep, think, and revise for you to be like, hey, wait a minute, Reed, you're saying all these words, but you're not using the correct meaning for some of them, or you're misusing words in certain places. That's why it's a little different for live streams versus what I can edit. Regardless, we're going to be talking about the Richtofens, what the cycle means, the loops, and so on, and I want to get your feedback on this, because I'm not perfect, I don't pretend to know everything, and it's with your perspective and with your intelligence, I'm able to reform and reshape my own opinions and values, and then spit out some kind of better information about my understanding of the timeline, and it's a continuous process, a continuous improvement process. So I want to point out, this is not the chronological order of the Ultimus and Primus loops. This is what we play through. So that's a big difference. The maps we play through are not the order in which it happens. That's why we can have in Classified post-moon characters in 1953 or 63 when it takes place. So I was misusing the word cycle constantly in that stream because I was off. I wasn't really thinking. I was at 9-hour stream. The cycle as I understand it is the timeline that was revealed for Zombie Chronicles. That is the cycle that keeps happening over and over again, and I made a very crude summary of that cycle here. The Great War happens, right? And then eventually in the other universe we have World at War through Black Ops 2, but there's at least 2 universes going on. We know there's actually 3 universes plus fractures in the original timeline. But too many details, it starts to get things muddy. So let's just focus on a very simplified version of this. We go through World at War and Black Ops 2 at the same time that our characters go from Origins all the way to Rev. Now, in the correct cycle, we go to SOE and retrieve the summoning key. You remember all that from Black Ops 3. But when we get to Zetsubo no Shima and Gorod Krovi here, let me get out of the way for you. And I apologize for the glares or anything like that. Zet to Mob to GK is what we see in the comic books. It happens without a single incident, and they end up going to GK to go get Nikolai's soul, and then they get to Revelations to defeat the Shadow Man, where Monty ends up sending them back to the Great War. Now, the motivations of Dr. Monty have us a bit confused, because he seems to know about the blood vials, but he wasn't able to stop them from using them because of free will. We understand that Dr. Monty, not a big fan of free will, and that sort of plays into him becoming the antagonist of the series, or the bad guy. And also why he introduces himself in Gorod Krovi is because he's worried his perfect world is under threat. What your perfect world is might not be what Dr. Monty's perfect world is, and a perfect world for him is Dr. Monty being a god and in control of everything. The cycle being broken could be a threat to that, or Dr. Monty might know he's in the cycle and he wants to break himself out of the cycle, so afterwards he sends them back to the Great War, and this is where stuff starts to get messy? If we go to a new timeline that seems to happen, that's down here. Is this in the way? No, you can see this. Okay, good. We know the big cause of the cycle breaking is Mob of the Dead. And potentially new timelines are caused, Classified Blood and comic books, other versions of it, are now results of the cycle breaking. Now the comic books themselves, I mean like the loading screen changes could potentially be when the cycle breaks. The Victus characters going to the house, and so on. So let's come back to this new timeline. We know Mob of the Dead gets broken, right? So once that's broken, the Zetsubo no Shima to Mob of the Dead to Go Ride Crovey no longer exists. That's why I scribbled it out here, where up here you see how the timeline keeps going. Well, no longer does that exist. The cycle is finally broken, meaning we're not going to play through this ever again. This doesn't happen anymore. But don't let that be lost on you that Richtofen's journey still occurred to allow this to happen. This has been going on over and over and over again. I was reading a quote from Dr. Monty's Wisp last night that suggested that Tank Dempsey has given his life for the team 18 million times. Now, it doesn't specifically say Primus.
On over 18 million occasions, Dempsey gave his life for the sake of his team. He's a bona fide American hero.
But 18 million times he's died. Does that mean 18 million different Dempseys died? Or does that mean one Dempsey has been dying 18 million times? Or is there some combination? We don't know. That's Treyarch withholding information from us. But at the very least, that's shocking to hear 18 million Dempsey deaths. That could play into, we got quite a lot of this cycle going on. We know our Primus characters die from the music cutscenes in these. So every time they might be going through these maps and they get to GK, and Nikolai kills them, back to the start we go, right? Every time you die, it sends us back to the start of the cycle. Death doesn't free us from doing this over and over again. That's what we learned in the loops. There's 3 possible loops inside our game so far that I could recognize, and what I mean by loops are similar to cycles, and Monty even comments about like, boy, this happens more often than you think, where you get stuck, you die, but you keep coming back to life. Mob of the Dead is the obvious one. That's the one we all played through. Shangri is one of the older ones that we didn't really recognize until they kind of reworked the story as time went on. Brock and Gary are stuck in here, and Sally. Now, this was something Mr. Raffle Waffles brought up to me, and then Liz, who's another hardworking member of this community who gets into the ciphers and the radios and the lore, also brought it up to me, and there's radios inside Revelations that I thought was Sarah Michelle Gellar. That's how dumb I can be at times. The secretary of George Romero gets stuck in Shangri-La. Do you believe that? And I thought it was Sarah Michelle Gellar, even though they say the cast is lost in the first radio. Completely, missed that. That's only a testament to like the videos I make, right? Some of them, like the Marlton bunker theory, completely wrong. Died After Moon, completely wrong. But that was my best guess of the past. Some of the things work out well, like Dr. Monty's evil, or Dr. Monty's trying to kill all of our characters in the universe, or who's in charge of the power-ups, the reason our characters went to Shino Numa. Some of my theories work really well and I hit the nail on the head. Other ones, not even close. So that's why I make these, so we keep getting better and closer to what we want. And the final loop here, which people are disagreeing with me heavily on, is the Blood of the Dead loop. The only reason I believe it's a loop is because of the trailer we had. Our characters die over and over again in the Blood of the Dead trailer. The only way Blood of the Dead cycle gets broken is by Richtofen sacrificing himself. That is why it becomes a more meaningful and bigger deal that our group is stuck. We even have a cipher inside Classified from Dempsey explaining how they always end up getting stuck inside Blood of the Dead. That's a video I've been trying to make for a week, but I will get to that later. I thought I was going to take today off, but this is on my mind so much I wanted to get this video up for you. And honestly, have you try and straighten this shit out in my head, because I could probably be wrong here. So because the loop is broken in Blood, because the cycle is broken in Mob, now we get a brand new timeline. No longer does this work, so that old Treyarch Zombies timeline just represents this right now. But remember, there's stuff on that timeline that you go, wait a minute. Why isn't this on here? Why is that missing? Why is the Richtofen endgame missing? That's not on the timeline. Why is the dimension like 5562 or whatever it is for Richtofen's Innocent Soul, where that comes from? How come that's nowhere to be found? It's because there's so many universes. The one that's stuck in a loop is just the ones shown on our timeline. There's still all kinds of other stuff going on. Dr. Monty even comments in a Revelation Radio saying, you shouldn't even have 115 in your universe. And that starts to get into more details. I'll get into yet another video talking about the Shadow Man versus Monty and what's in store for our characters fighting Dr. Monty in the end. Back to the new timeline. We know Blood of the Dead ends, and that sacrifice allows our characters to escape. Escaping means eventually they're going to go to DLC, and I use N as a variable placeholder. Oh no, Reed, don't you dare use math as the number. So it could be DLC 1, 2, or 3, and potentially even 4. Eventually, Monty fight, right? At most, I believe DLC 1, 2, 3 could be in between the Monty fight. I would be surprised if they end up pushing that earlier, but the finale is probably going to be fighting Dr. Monty. Classified now seems to also come in a new timeline because the Ultimus crew survives Moon, but they don't just teleport into the past, they teleport to a new universe. How do I know this, you may ask? The hangar in Zombie Chronicles is numbered Hangar 20. The hangar in Classified that holds the Ultimus crew post-Moon is labeled Hangar 4. These are different universes. This is intentional because Zombie Chronicles was just released. If Treyarch overlooked that detail, then boy oh boy, are we going to be smashing our heads against the wall. Similar to the second summoning key glitch that happened in the outro of Blood of the Dead. Just more eye-rolling mistakes that only serve to confuse us in the timeline that'll eventually be sorted out. So what I'm suggesting is the Classified post-Moon Ultimus is going to get involved inside our storyline. If you look at the loading screen for the public match inside Black Ops 4, it talks about how it's Ultimus and Primus's final journey this season. Now that I've gone through the cycles and the loops, let's talk about the Richtofens. There has been a wonderful point made about a scar on Richtofen's face, and that is the indication of which Richtofen we're dealing with. We notice in the BO3 storyline, Richtofen has the scar, and that's the Richtofen that ends up breaking the cycle. And that's the one that's willing to change Richtofen's journey. I made a video about Richtofen's journey you can check out. It'll help you catch up on all that type of stuff. But the simpler version is he goes through and does everything. Just like the Richtofen in our game, he still does everything, but there's a difference now of another version of himself. Goes back in the past and goes through time into Blood, into the brand new Broken Cycle universe and says, hey, we have to sacrifice you to cut this out. I'm okay with letting me die. When many other versions of himself were constantly trying to figure out how to not let that happen. Because there's a quote in Blood where he says he knew this was the way it had to go if they were to get out of this. And he was just avoiding this at all costs once he read the Chronorium in Blood of the Dead when it changed. He then knew, oh, this is what's going to happen. I don't want this to happen. Prior, when he read the book originally, told him this cycle. And he thought he was doing the right thing, and that he thought that's what he wanted. Post-production Reed here, and my memory card was full, so I had to change memory cards, and when I did that, the autofocus of my camera changed. So the rest of this is blurry as shit, so I probably will be stitching more gameplay than whiteboard in now, so I apologize for that error. I'm an idiot. The question is, are we actually sad that Richtofen died, the good Richtofen? Yes, because it's him. It is him. It's just a him that didn't get to be the post-Revelations Richtofen that we played through in Black Ops 3, which potentially hurts the sad story as well, because this Richtofen would care about his comrades. This is the same Richtofen that decided after Takio killed himself, he had to do something to save his friends. And that something was sacrificing himself. Another thing I want to point out is all of Richtofen's quotes are reused, which makes me wonder, has he already been through this? That whole sequence, which you might be like, reused, Reed, what are you talking about? When Richtofen's ending monologue are all quotes we have heard from every single map in the Primus story. This impacts his 115 delusions. This could be the worst case scenario that maybe they still are in a loop, but I'm hoping that's not the case, because he says the cycle is broken, Air Doctor. So hopefully he means that, and the post-Rev Richtofen isn't an agent of the Shadow Man or Monty or tricking us to get us back inside the loop or something like that. I don't believe that's the case, but it's something to keep in the back of our minds. So our premise characters with post-Revelations Richtofen might be justified in leaving with the guy that really went through everything just like this one, but had the guts to not be selfish and try and save the universe, even though he's not the one that dies anyway, so it's wishy-washy. And the final thing I want to bring up is the possible maps remaining in the Aether storyline. We have hints from Jason Blundell that there's going to be a London or UK map. That's something that's been brewing for quite some time. They actually were recording all kinds of on-set audio and locations, so this seems like it's a DLC in our future. Whether it's a Chaos storyline or Aether storyline, we're not sure, but it seems very likely this would be where the house is located based on previous hints. We also have Atlantis on the board because of Classified. There are 4 arrows pointing to 4 dots inside the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, which we're very familiar with being a possible location for Atlantis. We have the Dark Aether as a possible final map location to fight Dr. Monty, and we have Argatha, which I continue to mispronounce, so I apologize to the 12 of you that get really frustrated when I say that. We could be returning to some version of that, or the city inside the center of the Earth. What we believe to be Argatha at the end of the Revelations, that was supposed to be the place, the big deal, Argatha. But Treyarch may have changed their interpretation of how we understand it, and maybe it even changes form. It doesn't necessarily have to be what ended up happening at Revelations. So there you go. That is a much better refined theory about the loop, the cycle, which Richtofen's which, and how we ended up here. The Richtofen at the end of that cutscene is part of the Broken Cycle universe, despite going through the cycle many, many times. Post-Revelations Richtofen, the one in the medieval armor, is the Richtofen we played through in Black Ops 3 based on the scar on his face. That's our leading theory, but that could change. Keep an open mind as the season goes on, because Treyarch loves subverting our expectations. I'm Ronaldson27. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm hoping any of that made even a little sense to you, and if it did, hey, subscribe for more, because there's a lot more storyline videos. I literally have a list of like 15 videos I need to make, but I'm going to try and take the rest of the day off. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful weekend, and we're going to be working on getting that classified Easter egg solved. Also, go buy my t-shirts. There's not many left. I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.